We've got 7 of the most popular cordless routers, and we have used and abused all of them. Today, we're going to rank them from number 7 to number 1.
So guys, the advancement in technology and battery-powered routers has really advanced over the last few years. We've got 7 of these things now. We're going to rank them top to bottom. One thing I want to say is we've modified all of these for freehand carving signs. You know, that's what we do. So we have base plates on them that we make. If you want to check them out, you can go to makeawoodsign.com. We got all kinds of supplies over there. Let's get into this. Number 7 on my list, last, is the Bauer. Now this is one that we got early on, and frankly the technology might have gotten better. The Bauer today might be a better version of this. At the beginning we were kind of impressed with it, but then it kind of started falling apart. The little shaft lock spring busted and bounced to Tupelo. We don't know where it is. And then one of the LED lights went out on it, and I'm not a big fan of this type of depth adjustment. And one of the things I do like is I do like this type of switch. Also, the battery indicator letting you know how much battery is left seems a little wonky. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So, you know, this is definitely the last one I'll reach for. This one, it goes for about 60 bucks, and this is tool only. All of these guys will be tool only. You can get deals, you can get specials on all of these routers, but this one, regular price is 60 bucks.
So number 7 for me is the Bauer. Now, this thing's 60 bucks, and I have heard of deals where you can get them for like $30. The problem with this thing is, after a month or two, it busted. The shaft lock flew off, like Dad said, couldn't find it, and then one of the LED lights, which was actually my favorite feature of this thing, went out. And to be honest, it just has a cheap feel to it. The battery is real loose inside the motor is real loose inside the housing. This whole thing just feels cheaply made. If you can find it for 30 bucks, I'd say it's worth it as a backup. Anything more than that, I wouldn't do it.
Number 6 on my list is the Cobalt. Now this is the second battery powered router that we ever got. I really like this one because I already had a whole bunch of Cobalt batteries. This router is still good. We use it on a regular basis. It's just not one of my favorites. And the biggest reason is actually the depth adjustment. This really doesn't have any micro adjustment. It literally, when you loosen that thing, it is just wherever you set it. For freehand carving signs, I really need a good micro adjustment, and this doesn't have it. The other thing that I didn't like is it doesn't have a double wrench setup as a backup for the shaft lock. All it has is the button, and every once in a while those will go bad. This one has it, so kudos on that standpoint. But again, it's a good router, and by the way, this is a $100 router. One of the other things is the sound that it makes. It generally has a little bit of deflection going on inside the motor. I think it's probably bushings rather than bearings, but anyway, this one we use a lot, but it definitely is not one of my favorites.
Number 6 on my list is the Cobalt. Now, in all fairness, this thing works and it keeps working. But I kind of relate it to like an old jalopy. Drives like crap and it sounds like crap, but it just won't die. This thing sounds like it's gonna explode at any minute. I also don't like how low that the motor has to sit in the housing for the router bit to be out. I don't like the feel of it. I just really don't like using this router.
Number 5 on my list is the Craftsman. Now again, this is a router we use on a regular basis. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not one of my favorites. The depth adjustment actually is pretty decent on this. It's got a nice micro adjustment. The things I don't like, the switch. I'm just not a fan of the little toggle switch behind the rubberized thing. The other thing is the battery is so tight on there that it really is kind of a pain to get off. It's really, really snug. I thought it would loosen up over time. So far it hasn't done that. I think Ryan kind of likes it, but I'm not a fan of that. The other thing is it doesn't have the double wrench backup system for the shaft lock. All it's got is the button. Again, this is one. Now, the one thing I will say is it feels really good in the hand. It's got a smaller diameter, so it fits really well in the hand. So it really is a good router for a $100 price point. Again, it just doesn't make the top of my list.
Number 5 on my list is the Hercules. Now this is a pretty decent router. It feels pretty good in the hands. It's got plenty of power. There's no issues with it. And it's $70. So to be honest, this is well worth the money, but there's definitely better ones out there. It does have a little bit of a funky sound, nowhere near as bad as the Cobalt, but there still are times where it sounds like it's gonna go out. Even though it hasn't, we haven't had any issues with this thing, but $70, I'd say it's a pretty good deal.
Number 4 on my list is the Hercules. The Hercules goes for 70 bucks, whereas the Craftsman's $100. There are several different reasons why I picked this one in front of the others. On the actual motor itself, it has a scale so that when you're doing your micro adjustment, which it's got pretty much the same micro adjustment as the Bauer, when you're doing that, you can really tell how deep you're going. It's a really fine scale that it's got on there. That's one of the things I like. Next thing I like is the switch. I really like this type of switch. Again, it's very similar to the Bauer, probably the same thing. And it's got the double wrench setup as a backup to that shaft lock button. So that's the reason this one came in at number 4 for me.
Number 4 on my list is the Milwaukee. Now this is a good router, guys. It feels good in the hand. It's a solid router. It's got a ton of power. The one thing I'm not a big fan of is the micro adjustment. It tends to bind up a little bit as I'm adjusting it. And the biggest issue for me is that it's $200. It's one of the most expensive routers that we have. For that price, I would like a little bit better micro adjustment. Guys, I'm cheap. I don't like spending money, even though Dad spends the money on the routers. But I just think for $200, there's better options out there.
So now we're moving into the top 3 for me. Now guys, I'm breaking mine up almost into 2 different sections. The less expensive routers and these top 3 are the most expensive routers. So if you're budget conscious, definitely you can pick one of those others and they'll work for you. The Milwaukee actually goes for a couple $100, again, tool only. The things that I really like about the Milwaukee is the actual depth adjustment. I like this locking mechanism where you have a button to depress in order to do a macro adjustment on it. It's got the scale, the really nice scale, so you can see exactly how far you're going down when you're doing it. One of the things I don't like is this switch. I wish it had a different kind of switch, but I can deal with that. It does have the 2-wrench setup rather than just the button, which I really like. And this thing is super substantial. It really feels like it's built well. For 200 bucks, it better be. Anyway, so that is the reason this is number 3 on my list.
Number 3 for me is the Craftsman. Now this is only a $99 router, again tool only, but it surprised me how much I liked it and how often I reach for this. It's got a really good depth adjustment on it. It feels solid. The battery is pretty tight. You know, it's a tight battery, but I like the fact that it doesn't rattle around like crazy. It's just a good feeling router, feels really good in the hand, and for $99, I think this is the best deal out of all of our routers, especially if you're budget conscious. I think when we got this, we got 2 batteries, a charger, and the router for $99, and it shocked me how much I like this thing.
Now we're down to number 1 and number 2. And these guys, they could be interchangeable. These are both great routers, the Flex and the DeWalt. They both have my favorite depth adjustment, which is the Ring, and Flex, I believe, copied DeWalt in that sense. Definitely is the best depth adjustment that there is out there. I have always been just DeWalt would be number 1, but to be honest, the Flex now has taken the number 1 position for me. The Flex actually has more features. Number 1, it has the 2-wrench setup, which I'm shocked that the DeWalt doesn't. It only has the button shaft lock, which is a big disappointment for me. It also has an amazing shaft lock that I've never seen on any other router. That is a big thing. So the shaft lock here, and it has a safety feature where it won't turn on if the shaft is actually locked in position. The Flex just feels super substantial, but they both do. The other thing that I like the Flex over the DeWalt is the actual button. That's not a toggle button, it's just a push button on, and this has got that little toggle, rubber covered toggle. I'm not a big fan of that. So while I love both of these routers, the Flex actually eked out number 1 position for me. So number 1, number 2. So that's my setup all the way from 7 up to number 1.
Number 2 on my list is the DeWalt. I really like this router. The number 1 reason is the ring depth adjustment. Now I think that DeWalt was the first ones to come out with this as far as I know, and it is the best on the market that I've seen. About a year ago, one of them went out on us. We had to get another one. But again, guys, we use these things every day. We use our routers probably more than anybody else because it's our main tool. But this is a really good router. The shaft lock is pretty good on it. I mean, everything about it is solid, and it's 150 bucks. So this is way better, in my opinion, than the Milwaukee. Number 1 on my list is the Flex. This thing is as solid as it comes. This just feels really good in the hand. The biggest thing for me is the shaft lock. All the other shaft locks, you have to hold a button while you're trying to take the router bed out. With this one, it's just a switch, and it also has that safety feature where you can't turn the router on while the shaft lock is engaged. It also has a really nice push button. The one downfall on this is Flex is a fairly new platform, so if you don't have the batteries, then it's going to cost you a little bit more. This one's $199. Unlike the Milwaukee, I feel like they put a lot of thought into this, and I feel like they really engineered this thing well. It's a super solid router, and it's my number 1 because it's the first one I reach for.
Well, there you go, guys. That is our feelings on all 7 of these routers. We use these things on a daily basis. Literally, routing is our business. I know there are other routers out there, the Ridges and Ryobis. We sell base plates for those on a daily basis. We haven't got those yet, but I think we'll be adding them.
Dad has a thing with buying routers. It's kind of an obsession. So again, guys, we use these more than most people use a router in shop. Take it for what it's worth. This is just our opinion.
Yep. So if you guys have specific routers that you guys want us to do a review on, let us know. Yeah. I need an excuse to buy another router.
Yeah.
So
Mom's going to be pretty upset.
Yeah,
that's all right. You guys leave them in the comments and we'll be able to show them to her.
That's right. That'll prove, I'm doing it for you. This is all for you guys. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. We have a blast doing these kinds of things.
Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that little subscribe button. We got some really cool stuff coming up, guys. As always, if you have any questions, you can email us, Ryan@makeawoodsign.com.
Eric@makeawoodsign.com. Definitely leave us a comment. Let us know what you think of this. And we'll see you on the next one, guys. Love you. Bye.
Bye.